Hello everyone, this video is a demonstration of the generic technique for using a lateral flow test. Today we'll be using the Standard Diagnostics Malaria P or Plasmodium falciparum / PAN test, which checks for both Plasmodium falciparum and general malaria infection. As you're watching this video, please remember that every test is unique, so before you use any test, make sure that you read the directions so that you know you're doing it properly. With that said, let's get started. The first step in any test that uses blood is to put on a pair of gloves. This is important for safety, both that of the patient and your own. You want to make sure that neither of you catches a blood-borne infection as a result of the test. So I'm just going to struggle with these latex gloves here. Okay. After we've got our gloves on, the next step is to use an alcohol swab on the finger that you'll be drawing blood from. So I believe you are right or left-handed?
Right-handed.
Okay, so we'll take blood from your non-dominant hand, that's your left hand, and really any finger works as long as it's not the thumb. So I'll get out this alcohol swab here and be really thorough, just making sure I can clean off anything that might get in through the lancet into his skin once I prick him. We don't want to have an incidental infection from that. Set this off to the side. Now the next step is to prick the side of the patient's finger. Now here it's tempting to hold back but you really just have to go at it. You want to make sure that you can actually draw enough blood for the test to work. So I'm going to hold his finger steady, line it up, and go. And hopefully that'll produce a nice little drop of blood. So now while I've got that sitting there, I'm going to make sure I'm going to get my cassette out and ready. Set that here and get my blood transfer device out. And while I'm doing that, you can see he's got himself a nice big drop of blood going. That's very helpful for me. Now, next step is I'm going to hold the middle of the pipette or the blood transfer device. I'm just going to touch it to the surface of the blood drop to make sure that I get a thin film across the surface of the pipette. As you can see, I've got that. It's down here. And I'm just going to touch it very lightly to the section of the cassette that's labeled sample. And if you look here, you can see that I've got my blood sample there. So I should just be able, so that should work. Sharps. Yes. And one step that I forgot, this is actually a very common mistake and one that you really need to make sure you don't make, is immediately after you prick the patient's finger, you dispose of your lancet in a sharp spin. Otherwise, you can find it accidentally pricking someone else and transferring whatever infection might be in their blood to another person. So don't do what I just did. The next step is to add a number of drops of buffer. The number of drops actually varies between tests, so make sure that you read the directions to know how many to add. This test you have to add 4, so there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. And when you're adding the buffer, you want to make sure that the drops are falling freely instead of being still touching the bottle when you release them. That's to make sure that any potential contaminant in the buffer well doesn't travel up into the container itself. And now the next step here is we just wait about 15 minutes, depending on the instructions, to